Karen demands VIP treatment saying she knows the owner, ends up begging when her card declines on a 4K bill. Owning a high-end restaurant had always been my dream, and after years of hard work, my vision had become a reality. My restaurant was one of the most sought-after dining spots in the city, known for its unique fusion menu and luxurious ambience. I prided myself on the experience we offered, one where every guest felt like a VIP, whether they were a celebrity or someone simply celebrating a special occasion. However, I had also learned over the years that success comes with its share of entitled guests. There were always those who thought they could skip the line, disrespect my staff, and demand special treatment. Most nights, my well-trained team dealt with these types quickly and efficiently. But on this particular Saturday night, one guest pushed things further than anyone had before. It was a busy night, completely booked, as was usual for a weekend. The dining room hummed with conversation, and the waitstaff moved swiftly, balancing plates and pouring wine. Everything was running smoothly when, through the grand doors, walked in the embodiment of entitlement herself, Karen. She arrived alone, dressed in what I could only assume was her version of high fashion. Her oversized sunglasses stayed on, even though the sun had set nearly an hour ago. She wore a large fur coat, though it was barely autumn. With a sharp snap of her fingers, she gestured for the hostess, a young and polite woman named Lucy, to come over. "I need the VIP table," Karen declared in a voice that seemed designed to make people feel inferior. "And make it quick." Lucy, always professional, responded, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the VIP section is reserved for tonight. We're fully booked." Karen didn't seem to hear her. Or, more likely, didn't care. She waved Lucy off as if she was swatting at a fly. "No, you don't understand. I'm good friends with the owner. He'll want me to have the best table. Now, please stop wasting my time and get someone competent." From my position behind the bar, where I often enjoyed overseeing the operation, I watched the scene unfold. My staff was well versed in handling difficult customers, but this was something else. Karen was loud enough that several diners turned their heads to see what the commotion was about. I saw Lucy glance toward my manager, James, who was on his way over to help defuse the situation. James approached Karen with his usual calm demeanor. "Good evening, ma'am. I'm James, the manager. I hear there's a bit of confusion. Can I help you find your reservation?" She sighed dramatically, as though James was testing her patience. "I don't need a reservation. I already told the hostess, I'm a personal friend of the owner. We go way back." I had to suppress a laugh. Personal friend? I didn't even know who this woman was. I had a strong rapport with many of our regulars, but she wasn't one of them. Nonetheless, I let James continue handling the situation for the moment. "I understand, but as I mentioned to the hostess, we're fully booked tonight. The VIP section is reserved. We can offer you a table at the bar while you wait, or..." Karen cut him off. "Absolutely not. I won't be sitting at the bar like some commoner. If the owner knew how I was being treated, he'd fire all of you on the spot. Now, get me that table." Her voice was growing louder, and people were really starting to stare now. James glanced toward me, and I knew it was time for me to step in. I calmly walked over, removing my apron as I approached. "Good evening," I said with a friendly smile. "I'm the owner. Is there a problem here?" Karen turned to look at me, eyes widening for a brief moment, but she quickly masked her surprise with a scowl. You're the owner?" she asked, skeptical but quickly recovering. "Well, I'm glad you're here. Your staff is completely incompetent. I've been trying to tell them that I'm a close friend of yours, and they refuse to seat me at the VIP table." I raised an eyebrow, leaning into the role she had assigned to me. "Oh, you're a friend of mine, are you? Funny, I don't recall ever meeting you before." Her face flushed. For a moment, I thought she might back down. But instead, she doubled down. "Well, maybe not personally, but I know all about your business. I'm practically a regular here. If you don't want to lose a valuable customer, I suggest you do what's right and give me that VIP table now." The audacity. I could see Lucy and James exchanging glances, and I knew they were thinking the same thing I was. This woman was completely out of touch with reality. But I wasn't about to let her ruin the night, especially not for my other guests, many of whom had booked weeks in advance for the VIP section. And since she wanted to play games, I decided I could play along. "Of course," I said, my tone overly agreeable. "I would hate to lose such a valuable customer. I'll make sure you're well taken care of." A look of smug satisfaction washed over Karen's face. She didn't even bother thanking me. Instead, she turned to James and Lucy with a triumphant smirk, as though she had won some kind of battle. I waved over one of the waiters. "Set Ms. Karen up at the VIP table," I said. "Make sure she gets the royal treatment." Karen strutted over to the table, finally removing her sunglasses as she sat down. I could hear her snapping at the waiter before she even had the chance to look at the menu. "I'll start with your finest champagne," she said. "None of that cheap stuff." The waiter, a seasoned professional, nodded politely and went to fulfill her request. But what Karen didn't know was that the VIP table came with more than just a view. It also came with a hefty price tag, and tonight, she was about to get the most expensive dining experience of her life. As the night went on, Karen indulged herself in everything the menu had to offer. She ordered the most expensive dishes, from caviar and lobster to truffle pasta and wagyu steak. She didn't hold back on the drinks either, ordering bottle after bottle of the finest wine and champagne. The other diners watched in quiet disbelief as Karen flaunted her supposed status, snapping at waiters and sending dishes back if they weren't up to her impossible standards. I made sure to stay out of sight, letting her believe she had won. Sure. Here's the revised ending with Karen's card declining, adding a layer of desperation to the scene. By the time Karen had finished her extravagant meal, it was well past 11 p.m., and the restaurant had started to empty out. She leaned back in her chair, looking supremely pleased with herself, still snapping her fingers at the staff and demanding more water as though she were royalty. James approached her table with a polite smile. "I trust you enjoyed your meal, ma'am?" Karen waved him off. "It was fine. Just bring me the check so I can get out of here." James handed her the bill, neatly tucked into a leather folder. She barely glanced at it at first, but then her eyes snapped back to the page as the total registered in her mind. What is this?" she stammered, her voice shaking slightly, her confidence suddenly faltering. "That's your bill, ma'am," James replied calmly. Her face drained of color as she stared at the total, $4,000. Her eyes widened in disbelief, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. She blinked several times, as if willing the number to change, but it remained fixed at the bottom of the page. "There must be some mistake," she said, her voice rising an octave. "This is absurd. I didn't ask for all of this." James remained professional, his tone steady. "Actually, ma'am, you did. You requested our finest champagne and the most expensive items on the menu, and you insisted on the VIP table. The owner himself made sure everything was to your specifications." Karen's hands shook as she pulled her designer purse into her lap and began rummaging through it, eventually pulling out a sleek credit card. "This is ridiculous. I'll pay, but I'll be having a word with your owner about this outrageous bill." She handed the card to James, who took it without comment and walked over to the payment terminal. The restaurant had quieted now, with only a few lingering guests who couldn't help but notice the tension in the air. From my spot behind the bar, I saw James swipe the card and then pause. A second later, I saw the look on his face. The card had been declined. He walked back to Karen's table, holding the card carefully, as though he was handling a delicate piece of glass. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but it seems your card has been declined." For a moment, there was stunned silence. Karen blinked in disbelief, then laughed nervously, waving it off. "Oh, that can't be right. I must have handed you the wrong card. Here, try this one." She fished out another credit card from her purse, this one gold-plated. James took it and once again walked to the terminal. A few tense seconds later, the same result. "I'm afraid this card was declined as well," he said, his voice calm but firm. Now, Karen's face was ashen. Her hands trembled visibly as she pulled out another card, then another. Each one was returned with the same verdict: declined. At this point, her facade of confidence had crumbled completely. The smugness, the entitlement, all gone, replaced by sheer panic. Her eyes darted around the room, as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist.
I don't understand," she stammered. I must have mixed up my cards."
I decided it was time to step in. I walked over to the table, hands in my pockets, and gave her a cool, measured look. "Is there a problem, Miss Karen?" Her eyes met mine, and in that instant, I saw the shift, from arrogance to desperation. She wasn't in control anymore, and she knew it. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "There's been some mistake. I'll pay, I just need to. I don't have the right card on me right now. I didn't realize." Her words were jumbled, her confidence shattered. I gave her a long, slow nod. "I understand. But the fact remains, you've enjoyed a $4,000 meal and haven't provided a valid form of payment." Tears welled in her eyes now, the panic clearly sinking in. "Please, you can't expect me to pay this all right now. I'll come back tomorrow. I know the owner, surely he'll understand. You know I'm good for it. I leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with her. I am the owner. The realization hit her like a punch. Her mouth fell open, her face contorting in a mixture of shock, disbelief, and shame. Please, she begged now, all arrogance gone, her voice shaky and desperate.
I didn't know.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I cut her off gently, but firmly. You claimed to know me. You insisted on the VIP table. You demanded the best of everything, and now you need to pay for it. This is a business, Miss Karen, not a charity. Tears started to spill down her cheeks. I don't have that kind of money on me. Please, I can't pay this right now. There has to be something you can do. I'll do anything. The desperation in her voice was palpable, and for a brief moment, I almost felt a flicker of pity. But then I remembered the way she had treated my staff, the entitlement, the disrespect, the lies. I straightened up, my expression neutral. Here's what we'll do. I'll keep your personal belongings here until you return with payment in full. If you don't return by tomorrow, I'll have no choice but to take further action. Karen's face went pale, her eyes wide with fear. No, please. Don't call the police. I'll figure it out. I'll pay you. Please. I held up my hand to stop her. We'll expect you back by tomorrow. She nodded rapidly, wiping her tears with shaky hands. Without another word, she slipped off her watch, a designer piece worth thousands, and handed it to me. Then, she reached into her bag, handing over her phone as collateral. With her dignity in shreds, Karen fled the restaurant, the sound of her heels echoing as she stumbled out the door. The restaurant fell quiet after her exit. The remaining staff and patrons exchanged glances, some shaking their heads in disbelief. A few laughed quietly, unable to hide their amusement at the dramatic turn of events. James walked over to me with a knowing grin. Well, that was something. I chuckled softly. It was, indeed. We stowed her items away in the office safe, and I went about closing the restaurant for the night, satisfied that Karen had learned a hard lesson about entitlement. The next day, Karen did return, her face flushed with embarrassment as she handed over the full amount in cash. She barely looked me in the eye as she collected her belongings and left without another word. Needless to say, she never returned to the restaurant after that. But among the staff, her story became legendary, a cautionary tale about the dangers of arrogance, entitlement, and pretending to be someone you're not. It was a story we shared with every new hire, a reminder that no matter how high someone might think they are, reality always has a way of bringing them back down. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed these Reddit stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.